The Edmonton Oilers just sent a terrifying message last night showing that when they are down, they get back up again in a huge win to send it back to Rogers Place with the series tied at 1. All that more today on Oilers Digest. We break down everything from last night's game and just sort of show everybody what is clicking with these Oilers when everything's going right. Because, of course, we saw in Game 1 the penalty kill led to the demise of the Oilers, but last night everything just happened to work out for this team. And 82% of you have not yet subscribed to the channel that are watching these videos. If you're watching these videos and you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that button down below for any and all Oiler content. But let's get into this one, folks. We have one word only to describe last night's game, and that is Stu. Yes, Stuart Skinner, number 74. You either get an 860 or you get a shutout with him. And last night it was the latter. The Oilers take this one by a score of 3-0, tying the series up at 1, going back to Edmonton Sunday afternoon. The scoring summary, very short, very sweet, and very simple there with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the power play from a deflection off the stick of Evan Bouchard. Found the way to the blade of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, tapping it in past Jake Oettinger, making it 1-0. And the Oilers, with their 17th different goal scorer in the Stanley Cup playoffs, so Brett Kulak, the boy from Stony Plain, making it 2-0 Oilers off of a shot block from Mikko Rantanen. Again, found the way back to Brett Kulak in the second chance, found the back of the net there, and then shortly thereafter, Connor Brown off of a deflection from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Lots of different ways to beat Jake Oettinger. And the Oilers are finding it because, Jake Oettinger, very solid netminder, and you got to find different ways to get the puck past him. But the Oilers did that 3 separate times last night. Stuart Skinner, with his 3rd shutout in his 4th start, what a guy. What a fantastic goalie when he's on, very, very composed, very calm. I mean, there were a few times last night where I thought, Stu, where are you going? But you know what? He's sort of like a Mike Smith of the past. They're a very adventurous goalie, but somehow, someway, got the Oilers another shutout in the end there. And with an assist on Brett Kulak's second period goal, Connor McDavid became just the 4th player in NHL history to score 4 straight 20-point post seasons. I mean, the guy, his magic just seems to be lost in front of everything regarding this Oiler team, but that's just kind of the guy he is. Stats don't really matter that much to him, but the Lord Stanley's mug is what matters to him. But he joined some elite company there with Sergei Fedorov of the Red Wings, and then Brian Trottier and Mike Bossy of those dynasty New York Islanders as the only players to accomplish this feat there. So Connor McDavid, he's making it look easy out there, isn't he? I mean, a guy that, like I said, his magic with Leon Draisaitl in the rest of the team just seems to be just another subplot to this magical storyline. Oiler team now with the shots on goal tied apiece at 25. The Oilers dominating the Dallas Stars in the hit counter there, 50-29. Zach Hyman having 9 of those, continuing his monster of a playoff run there, just hitting everything that is not bolted down. Unfortunately, the Oilers dominated on the faceoff dot by the Dallas Stars 31-21, but the main storyline coming into this game was that Oilers penalty kill, and they killed off 2 big penalties there, one in the first and one in the third there. We all thought to ourselves, okay, how is this power play, Dallas power play, going to, punish the Oilers some more? But fortunately, this Oiler PK tightened up when it mattered most, not just, all the forwards and defensemen on the ice, but also Stuart Skinner himself there, including a very, very dumb penalty by Darnell Nurse there in the 3rd period, slashing Rupe Hintz. It was reviewed for a 5-minute major, but it only ended up being 2 minutes there. Rupe Hintz was carried off of the ice there, so nobody really knows what his status is for Game 3. I mean, Pete DeBoer and the rest of the Dallas fans were very, very livid there, but I'm more livid about how dumb that penalty was to take by Darnell Nurse. Sort of a retaliation call. I mean, Rupe Hintz cross-checked him in the back. It was a very, very light tap cross-check, and then Darnell Nurse retaliated with the slash there. But, I mean, it should have just been 2 minutes, and it was only 2 minutes. Thankfully enough there. But our boy, the Nuge, is huge with 2 straight power play goals in as many games. They're getting the first star of the game. I was surprised that Stuart Skinner didn't get the first start of the game, but you know what? Either one of those would have worked there. And then continuing his postseason magic there, continuing from last year's playoff run with Evan Bouchard with 2 assists plus 1 on the night in 23.5 minutes there. I mean, we can all rag on the guy for his regular season decision making, but in the playoffs, number two, Evan Bouchard steps up when it matters most. But Connor McDavid is showing some love to his goaltender, Stuart Skinner. As players, you don't have enough appreciation for how a goalie battles. You trust he's going to do his job back there, battle to try to see the puck, make every save he can, and he did that tonight. He made every save, and that's a good night for a goalie, including this one off the stick of Esa Lindell there, almost reminiscent of the Cujo save back in Game 7 in 1997 there. Stuart Skinner, of course, it's always an adventure in the crease there, and that save, fantastic work by Stu there in the third period. That Dallas was all over the Oilers, and the Oilers needed to weather the storm, and that is exactly what they did. And Stuart Skinner not just, made that fantastic save, but he also moved himself up to second place on the Oilers' all-time postseason shutout record there, with Cujo only having one more shutout there, and almost, 20 less games. That just goes to show how good of a goalie Cujo was before he went to Toronto there. But you can see all the names that Stuart Skinner has passed: Bill Ranford, Cam Talbot, I should say, Mike Smith, Grant Fuhr, and then, the 2006, the Magic goalies, UC Markkinen and Dwayne Rolson there. So Stuart's going to either get one or you get the other with him. His best game, that wasn't the shutout, being 8:33 back in the Vegas series there. So he's a very, box of chocolates type of goalie there. You never know what you're going to get, but I love the chaos that Stuart Skinner brings to the crease in these games. He's a battler. He's a winner on some nights, but with Stuart Skinner, there's not much more that you can say about him. I mean, he's just one of those goalies where on any given night he can steal a game, or he can obviously so very lose you a game there. But, with Stuart Skinner, he takes it, by as a on a game-to-game basis there. Being a goalie, I've kind of seen the growth happen every single game, especially as the playoffs got started. I feel like every single day we just improved and gotten better and better and better. When you look at the teams that win, they're normally the teams that are pretty stifling defensively, and I know that we've been improving and we've been getting better because obviously we want to be that team. That's just the kind of team that Edmonton has grown into during these playoffs there. They can win any type of game. They can, a run and gun game, or just, basically shutting down the other team for 60 straight minutes. And Dallas, again, was pouring it on in the third period there, but Edmonton locking it down, not just, the saves, but the block shots. I mean, a fantastic block shot there in the dying seconds by Trent Frederick there. The game was well out of reach, but that's just the kind of guy Trent Frederick is, putting his body on the line for this team here. And like I said, everyone in some way or another contributed to the win last night, even if they didn't, put up any points or have any significant minutes, but they did, again, have their own way of, just putting their own part into the win last night. You can see, the hits, even though Evander Kane didn't really have himself, that great of a game the past two games. It hasn't been, the classic Evander Kane that we've seen, like, in the first two rounds, but, throwing the body, still 5 hits. Zach Hyman, like I mentioned, 9 hits, all the block shots there, but, Corey Perry, John Klingberg, Leon Draisaitl, and Jake Wallman putting up, 3 block shots of their own. So this team, when they're on, they are terrifying. The rest of the league is being put on notice, not just the Dallas Stars, but also in the other series too, the East Series, Carolina and Florida. They should be looking at us going, okay, well, if one of us gets to the Cup final, this is what we have to go up against. And the Oilers, I want the Oilers to be that juggernaut of a team that makes teams scared of them. I mean, there's no better feeling than, not being the villains of the league. That's not what the Oilers are, but just being that team that, has to be the team to beat. But of course, with Florida, to be the best, you got to beat the best. But hopefully Carolina takes them out. But the Oilers are that terrifying team. When the goalies are on, when the defense is on, when the forwards are on, when the depth is on, this team is fantastic, and they are a joy to watch every single night. Like I mentioned, everyone, even if the hockey stat chart didn't necessarily agree with how they played, Matisse Janmark, of course, missing that open tap in the third period that would have essentially sealed it even more. I mean, playoff Matisse Janmark is still a demon out there on the ice. But Bouchard, fantastic play. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, those are the types of guys that you need to step up in a playoff cup run. It can't just be one or two guys. You need a complete team effort. And that is what we saw last night from the team. You can see there, Darnell Nurse, the past 2 games, he's been, rejuvenated by Troy Stecher there. You can see the expected goals for percentage with Darnell Nurse and Troy Stecher at a 71% clip. Meanwhile, if you take Draisaitl away from Darnell Nurse, that depletes down to 22, nearly 23% there. So Draisaitl, even though he was targeted and looked a little bit shaky in Game 1 against Dallas, he stepped up in a big way last night, brought some calmness to this Oiler D pairing, which begs the question: what happens when Mattias Ekholm comes back into the lineup? Do you run 11-7, sort of shelter Mattias Ekholm until he's back to 100% and take away one of the forwards, maybe a guy like I don't know at this point, who do you take out? Kasperi Kapanen, even though he had that big overtime winner, you just take him out in order to slot a guy like Mattias Ekholm in, and then run 3 centers, and then give Draisaitl and McDavid a lot more runway to work with. But again, let me know down in the comments what you would do with that lineup when Ekholm comes back. But this team, when they're hot, they are hot there. But Zach Hyman saying we probably played better last game than we did this game, which to a certain extent is true. Edmonton dominated Dallas 5-on-5 all game 1, but game 2, Dallas, like I mentioned, did have some pushback. Special teams is really important in the playoffs, and probably one of the best 5-on-5 teams in the playoffs so far. If we can show up the special teams, which we're usually good at, we'll be in a good spot. And I mentioned the sort of the better team losing the game. I didn't think the Oilers were that bad last night. They did have their, spurts of energy there where they looked like the better team. But Dallas, like I mentioned, the Corsi for percentage, 56 compared to Edmonton's 43 there. But game 1, of course, Edmonton all over Dallas. Game 2, Dallas, not all over Edmonton, but they did provide some resistance there. But Edmonton is clearly the better team in this playoff series, and hopefully they can carry the momentum to Edmonton Sunday afternoon with a little afternoon delight. Yes, for the first time since 2006, the Oilers are playing a playoff afternoon game, and for the first time in forever, it's a playoff afternoon game at home. With Kris Knoblauch saying we had some breakdowns tonight. We did give up some good chances. The one that I think about is the Johnston breakaway. Stu comes up big. Yes, our team had some block shots, and yeah, we defended well, but Stu had a lot of timely saves, especially the one at the start of the third period that allowed us to keep him off the scoreboard. And we will need Stu. It's going to be huge once again. Like I mentioned, Sunday afternoon, tomorrow, Sunday, May 25th, 2 o'clock Central, 1 o'clock Mountain at Rogers Place. No matter what time the game is at, Rogers Place will be booming and should be a very interesting one, considering the status of Roope Hintz, which we are not too sure of. But that is it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel here. Lots of exciting times ahead for these Oilers. Should be another, yet again, deep playoff cup run, but knock on wood, you never know what is going to happen with this team. But let me know down in the comments what you thought about last night's game, and again, which lineup decisions would you make? I'm very curious to see what you would all have to say in the lineup. Everyone thinks the game differently, and that's the beauty about hockey. But take care, everybody. Have a fantastic Saturday. I'm Matt.